We're going to speak about archetype 1 as the human design gate 1. We're going to locate in the body graph. We're going to look at the channel. We're going to look at the circuitry. Then we're changing over to astrology, and we're looking at 1 in terms of where it is in the astrology wheel. Then we're looking at the programming partner. We're going to look at the quarter. We're going to look at gene key 1 and also at I Ching hexagram 1. Our intention for these calls is that sacred interplay between awareness and embodiment. So yes, I give you a lot of information here, but really as we are discussing and unpacking together, there's also this other element of embodiment, especially as you go back out into the world with this energy of hexagram 1, archetype 1 this week. You are going to have more possibility to play with the energy and also come alive with that energy. Take on the costume if you want to go into the portal of the 1. That is how we embody more of our design, with allowing those archetypes to become alive in ourselves, in our relationships around us. Today we're speaking about archetype 1, which was called the spark. This archetype is in transit from November 6th to November 10th. This is the gate of self-expression in human design. In the I Ching, we call this hexagram the creative, and in the gene keys, the frequency band goes from the shadow entropy to the city of beauty, and the human pathway is freshness. Looking at gate 1 in the body graph, it sits in the G center. The G center is what we call the identity center, and here we have a sense of direction and love. When this center is defined, we have this inherent sense of who am I, where am I going, what is love. If you have it undefined, you're going to hopefully have many adventures, many love stories where you can filter a lot of things so that you can learn about love, about identity, about direction. It's not something that's fixed in you. It's something that is not consistent. It's something that you are learning about through moving in the world. And it's really sad if you have an undefined G, if you hook on to a certain identity and you live that because it feels more safe or more stable somehow. No, you're here to have many adventures. You're here to get to know yourself through relationships, through environments. This is one of the centers where environment is extremely important. If you have a defined G, probably you're going to have a quite easy time to know what environments you resonate with, and you're going to go there because it's how you are going to move through the world. If it's undefined, then it's a little tricky, but you want to test different environment, and you want to know that the sense that you have of who you are, of where you're going and what love is really going to be able to change depending on where you're at. So important that you are in a place that feels good for you. When we look at the integral human design for this center, the low frequency is me, and kind of me in a more selfish sense. And then the gift frequency is self or true self, and the highest frequency is oneness. This is the gate of self-expression. The other archetypes that live in the G center are the confidant, the innocent, the sensual, the feminine, the wild woman, the natural, and the alpha. And the 25 in the beginning in 2020, it was called love. Then I changed it to the innocent because it felt more accurate to what gate 25 is actually about. And looking at the 1 together with a harmonic gate, which is gate 8, we have the channel of inspiration. This is a design of being a creative role model. This is projected. So if you have only this channel in your body graph, you're going to be a self-projected projector. If you have this channel, you're here to be creatively different from everyone else. You are going to have the courage to stand out from the crowd, be yourself, and you will get the recognition you deserve. Your difference is inspirational. Looking at the 8, some of the keynotes for this throat gate is uniqueness, trend setting, and flair. And then for the spark, some of the keynotes are originality, eros, and creativity. Then we can look at the frequency band of the whole entire channel, which comes from integral human design as well. So when we have mediocrity and entropy, that is the same as disturbance. So if you have this channel and you are in a really low frequency, you're in your not self, you're going to disturb the field. That sense of who you are, where you're going, what love is going to come out through the expression in the 8. But if you're in a low frequency, it's going to be quite disturbing. And then in the gift frequency, style and freshness are becoming originality. I love that. For the highest frequency, exquisiteness and beauty are becoming magnificence. Looking at the whole circuitry, we can see that in the middle of the body graph channels, we have the individual circuitry where the main keynote is empowerment. In those gates, there is also a certain deafness for outside influence. It's acoustic. It's like on the inside, you have a pulse that you can't really control. You can't control life force. You can't control creativity. You're more prone to hear from the inside than from the outside, which is not a bad thing. And at the same time, there is a melancholy that lives here, because if nothing is moving, if nothing is pulsing, it can feel like you are floating in the void. And that's basically what it does with especially this first gate. This is the prime yang. This is the entropy in the gene keys, and it feels like nothing moves. It's also the codon ring of fire. So either life is completely alive, awake, or it's completely at rest. And in the star codons, this is the star codon of Kundalini. So very connected as well to this middle pillar, to this life force that we see here. Now we're changing over to astrology. So in astrology, we are looking at the wheel and grouping it by 12 zodiac signs. We have gate archetype 1 that is in Scorpio, which is the 8th sign, which is connected in modern astrology to the 8th house. The modern ruler is Pluto. The traditional ruler is Mars. And here we have fixed water. Scorpio is the depth of the ocean, the waters of emotional authenticity, and the rebirth of magic. Scorpio in the low frequency is deception. In the gift frequency is authenticity. We can say sometimes it's blunt, but in a positive way of looking at it is authenticity. And the highest frequency is alchemy. Scorpio archetypes would be the sorceress, the shaman, or the alchemist. And here we also find service to self-growth through the authentic expression of the awakened heart. Scorpio has to do with other people's money, can have to do with debt, but it also has to do with deep transformational processes. So we are in the wheel from Aries all the way to Libra, which is the 7th sign. And then there is a death that happens here. And then we come to the very transpersonal signs and houses. So deep transformational work, sometimes having to die, even if it's just the ego that dies, but some kind of death process in order to get reborn on the other side. Looking at the programming partner, we have the 1 in Scorpio, and then we have the 2 in Taurus. So prime yin and prime yang. Funny that both of them are in feminine signs, but that's how it is. And you can see in the hexagram structure that the 1 is made up only of yang lines and the 2 only of yin lines. So of course, as usual for each line, in programming partners, we're going to have mirror opposites. Entropy and dislocation go hand in hand. Freshness and orientation go hand in hand. Beauty and unity go hand in hand. And both of these gates are in the G center on either side of that middle pillar of that Kundalini, of that pulse. If you have Gene Key 1, Gate 1 in your activation sequence or incarnation cross, you're also going to have the 2. And then the same thing in the nodes. I say often that people that have those 2 gates, it's almost like being a hamburger around the universe in the vastness of prime yin and prime yang and all that energy, everything in between those polarities. So if you have this, your life is going to be vast. And yet I don't think that we could say, oh, everybody has 1 and 2. They are typically doing this kind of work, or are typically liking these things. So it's very, very vast. So it's only by coming back to your own uniqueness, to your own inner knowing, that with those 2 gates, you can find a way. One of the crosses that we have here is the cross of the Sphinx, which has a lot to do with direction, but starts with the direction of self. It's a right angle cross. So it's for your own purpose. And then we also have the cross that have the 49 and the 4 that is more about a rebellion. Both are crosses that only have fixed signs. They are quite stubborn in that way, whether it's to be a rebel or it is to show a new direction that is more constructive than when we have been before. And then we are changing the quarters. So every time we are in a Sphinx gate, we are changing the quarter. So now we are in 1, which is starting the quarter of mutation. And here we have a purpose that's fulfilled by transformation. there is a lot of death and rebirth that happens here. And those last gates that you see, those are the keepers of the wheel. This is where the Maya basically becomes spirals instead of just stopping and starting. That's not how the human program works. It doesn't stop and start over. It spirals in spirals and spirals. So if we have a lot of the programming that is held by the godheads that are in the wheel, well, in those gates here, there is no godhead. So it's this kind of snapping out of illusion, understanding that it's a spiral, understanding that there is also evolution. We don't have to be conditioned in the same way forever. We're not slaves under the godheads, which I really like. The godheads that are governing this part of the wheel are Hades, Prometheus, Vishnu, and then we don't have a godhead, we have the keepers of the wheel. And that's also where we are in the Chinese New Calendar. That's also when we have the Rave New Year that happens in that first part of the wheel. And in the gene keys, we have this frequency band that goes from entropy to beauty, and the human pathway, what we want to anchor in is freshness. We could also say creativity, because it is the creative in the I Ching, and people that have the one have an inherent creativity, and freshness and creativity are going hand in hand, because creativity means that it's new. It's not more of the same. So that's the same as freshness. Looking at the low frequency entropy, how does that play out in a human? In the repressive, it's to be depressive. So if you think about the one and all the gates in the individual circuitry being connected to life force, when there's too little life force, when life force is repressed, it's going to be depressive, right? And if we turn it on too much, so the reactive, turning on too much life force, then it's going to be frenetic. I believe that when it comes to the one, the people that I have seen, including myself, is that you tend to actually have both. Because if this is the cordon ring of fire, and life naturally is sometimes turned on and sometimes turned off, you are going to have both expressions. Because in some gene keys, you're going to be like, oh, I'm definitely the one that is repressive, or definitely one that is reactive most of the time. But here I can see it depending on the moment, depending on the period. Sometimes in your life, you can be more depressive or more frenetic. And then you see in this one that both the dilemma and the victim state are numbness. Here, that is a quite big issue. Numbness, if you have the one, and again, just going back to what it is about, if it's about life force, the life force is not moving in a true self way, then we have numbness. And numbness could be too much stimulation, leads to numbness, or it could be, I don't feel anything. So numbness could come from either of these. I know this quite well because I have the 1.4, and the fourth line is also numbness. It just freezes. So when you have 1.4, you definitely know what numbness is. And then a lot of it is to actually embody yourself back into being home, because the one kind of goes out in the void and it's not home. And that's where you feel numb, because you can't feel yourself. You don't even know where you went. That's one of the ways that I have experienced it. And then we go to the very last place. So now we're looking at the I Ching. In the I Ching, instead of grouping the wheel into 12 zodiac signs, we're grouping it into 8 main elements. And because there are 64 gates, you're going to have 8 gates in each element. We're looking at them from the trigrams. So here is the first time now that we are in the part of the wheel where we have heaven on the bottom. And that also means that in the binary, which we could see, I didn't mention that, but we could see that in the quarters, we're going to have 2 yang lines in the binary on the very bottom of each hexagram in this whole quarter. But in those 8, we're going to have all 3 that are yang lines. So we also have this, the rebel, the powerhouse, the Black Panther, the mountaineer, the rhythmic, the hypnotist, and the idealist in this part of the wheel with the heaven trigram on the bottom. And then in this specific case, we have heaven over heaven. This is energy moving throughout all time. Prime yang, Eros. Looking at the different frequencies that we can have here. Entropy is empty potential. Freshness is unfolding. And beauty is revealed. Another way of saying this is always creating. And this is the last extra perspective today. So we are looking at the Baxis 3D, which is its own system that is color coding the I Ching trigrams and hexagrams with astrology. Here we can see that it's white because we have the heaven trigram that is white, and because all the lines are the same, it's going to be white everywhere. And this is a depiction of this always creating that we saw in the last slide. But the word that Sergio has chosen for one is to live. So here you see a lot of little guys in that white energy, which is actually connected to Leo and the 5th house. So that's the number 5 that you see here. And then because all are the same, on the inside, we have the same. And when I say on the inside, is when we don't look at the top row, we don't look at the bottom row, we just look in the middle. That's where we have the hidden trigrams. That's also how we can use the I Ching to predict things. When we have those numbers that are 2 of the same trigram, which is going to be the 1 and the 2, it's going to be the 29 and the 30, the 58 and the 52, the 51 and the 57, I believe. I think I said all of them. They are also going to be connected in this system to the decans. So we don't have those keywords for all of them, but we do have them for the ones that have 2 of the same. Here we have keynotes as create, strengthen, and shining. And the braid of this whole thing is to live, to integrate it all. So that is Eros. It's here to live, to integrate it all, to be part of it all. And then radiate your light is the recommendation that comes from the hidden trigram. So it's radiate and light are the same thing, 2 of the same. And if you have the 1, that's what you're here to do. Live fully, penetrate the world fully, be in your Eros fully, so that you can radiate your light, your uniqueness, your energy.